Hello everyone, my name is Clay, and welcome to another episode of Terminally Nerdy's Indie Impression, the show where I take a look at non-AAA, independent, and niche titles, giving you my quick first impressions after at least 2 hours of gameplay, because refunds and time limits, and you can go look it up, it's in every other video I've done. Anyway, today we're going to be looking at the comic book inspired Japanese RPG that's basically on every system at this point, even Android and iOS, Battlechasers Nightwar. Now, I originally came upon Battlechasers Nightwar when it was kickstarted. I missed a chance to kickstart it, which I've kind of always regretted to an extent, because it actually did come out, and that's good, because Kickstarters tend to have a issue with me and not actually releasing. I'm looking at you, Cryamore. Now, what attracted me originally to Battlechasers is that the art is by a guy called Joe Mad, or his actual name is Joe Madeira? I can't pronounce his last name, and that's my fault. He's a comic book artist who I originally ran into because he was the creative director and art director on Darksiders, which I absolutely love. So to find out he was doing a Japanese-style RPG with his art style, I was totally in on that. And thanks to Xbox Game Pass for PC, I'm finally getting a chance to play it, because Battlechasers is on Game Pass for PC. Woohoo! So Battlechasers is based inside of the comic book universe that Joe Mad created, called Battlechasers, which I've never read. And I thought I would have a problem not having read that, kind of understanding the story and the characters, but that's not the case at all here. The game does a very good job of explaining who the characters are and the setup for everything, and this adventure takes place completely separate from the comics. This adventure takes place during a point of travel where Nolan, who's the party's wizard, is trying to get them to go to this island where there's, I guess there's a history of mana being present, and he wants to research it. And they're all like, oh, sure, let's go. Maybe we can find Gully's dad. Because the entire premise of the comics, as far as I can tell, and the entire premise of the story is Gully, this little girl main character who's very spunky and has this huge, massive gauntlet on one hand. She's trying to find her dad, who is this, great hero and leader of men. And with her are Calibretto, this huge hulking war golem, Garrison, who worked with her father and has basically started training Gully on how to use the gauntlet, Red Monica, who's this thief character, and Nolan, this old man wizard who don't take no shit. I love Nolan, he makes me laugh. In the opening cutscenes, he features prominently, and it's hilarious. However, they basically get crash-landed on this island. Bandits, sky pirates actually, attack their airship and crash them. And from there, the story basically starts off with them trying to find their friends. You basically start as Gully, and then you very quickly run into Calibretto and Garrison, and then you're just left in this world trying to find your way off this island. And after about 4.5 hours of playing, the story started to slowly pick up and kind of hint at other things going on, bandits and artifacts and ancient mysteries. And it's actually really well done, and I was very curious about where it is going, to the point where I'm actually considering buying the mobile version just so I can play it, around, or maybe buying the Switch version so I can play it on the go, rather than being linked to my computer, to be honest. Now, visually, this game is fantastic. It has a hand-drawn art style. All the animations are phenomenal. The character designs are fascinating and full of personality. Even the enemy designs, even though there's some that look kind of palette swappy even early on, they still look unique. The bandits here, for example, remind me very much of the Psychos visually from Borderlands in a lot of ways, but not completely. They've got their own style. They're very ramshackle and, look like crazy bandits. It's great. Even the bats don't look normal. The bats have these, skull faces. It's freaky. The animations in combat are also really, really good and really, really well done. like, you can feel the weight of the hits. When Gully picks up a rock using her gauntlet and hurls it at the enemy, you can, like, feel the weight of that movement. When Calibretto comes in and gives them the old razzle-dazzle with an uppercut, you feel it. And the character designs, again, are fantastic. Each one just oozes personality. And there's also, as far as I can tell, no generic NPCs in town. You won't run into, like, townsperson A going, "The weather is great." Every single NPC has their own unique design and feel to them, the ones that you encounter, which is really nice. Musically, it's pretty solid. Honestly, I could take it or leave it. It's very, very atmospheric, and it kind of feels Diablo 2-ish in a lot of ways, like that dark, kind of moody, guitarish rock kind of thing. Honestly, I like it, but I could easily just turn it off and play anything else on my own and be perfectly happy. The sound effects are just there. But there's voice acting, and the voice acting is great. It is not everywhere. It is only in important story-driven moments. So when, like, the characters are discussing things between them involving their story or the quest or anything, that's when you'll get the voice acting. You won't get the voice acting every time you visit the tavern or every time the characters talk, because there are also some, like, dialogue stuff that happens every time you stay at inns between the characters, stuff to kind of, like, expand the story. Those things don't have voice acting, and I wish they did, because the voice acting is great. Every character has a very distinct voice style to them, and it fits them. Gully's got that, you know, I just want to impress everybody kid voice, while Calibretto is this huge but gentle robot. And they even put, like, the filter on it so it sounds robotic. It's good stuff. Finally, this is all attached to a JRPG battle system that is definitely inspired by some of the greatest ones. Now, they name inspirations like Suikoden and Chrono Trigger, but honestly, it felt more Final Fantasy X to me, because it uses an initiative tracker, so there's a very clear order of character actions on one side of the screen that you can see to play in your turns. And it's got a basic system of basic attacks and magic attacks. Eventually you'll unlock super attacks, which the game never mentions until you do it. They're overdrive attacks. Those are your big cutscene inspired, I'm doing the big hit kind of combo move stuff. You build up a meter and then you trigger them. Everyone has one, they're all different. What made me laugh, though, is in combat, the characters don't necessarily do what you think they do. Like, you look at Calibretto, and he's this big, angry robot, and you think that's going to be my tank. No, Calibretto's your healer. Gully is your tank, the little girl. She's the tank. Garrison is not the tank. Garrison is actually a buffer and bleed specialist. It's pretty freaking funny, actually, when you start realizing that the characters visually, the first three that you get, don't match what you expect them to. And combat is played out in turns. Every character has basic attacks, and basic attacks will actually generate what's called overcharge, which is excessive mana that is only available during that fight. Characters have an overcharge limit. So, like, for example, Gully may be able to have 100 points of regular mana, and then she has 30 points of overcharge. So if you generate overcharge, that overcharge is spent first for any of your actual special attacks. However, you can freely use your mana, and it'll deplete your mana bar, and your overcharge will refill your mana bar plus your overcharge limit. So if Gully can have 30 overdrive or points only, she can then spend 70 points of her mana and then generate her overcharge points back up to that 130 point in a single fight. Further, basic attacks almost trigger immediately every time, but your special attacks will have timers on them. So if Gully were to use her basic punch, she'll just use her basic punch and then move down in the initiative. But if she uses her move where she picks up rocks and throws them, these huge boulder-like rocks, then that might actually trigger after two other people go. It's very clear on the initiative tracker where a person is going to move for their move to trigger, so it's not something you just miss out. It's like you're looking over there and you go, okay, if I pick this move, the enemy's going to go before me, but if I pick this one, I'll go before the enemy. Perhaps I can kill them, or stun them, or something. Status effects play a big part in this game. There's a lot of them, bleeds and poisons and stuns and all this stuff, and you're going to need them and want to use them. There's also a full equipment system and everything. Overworld travel's interesting, actually. You're on a world map, but it's not open world. There's very distinct paths with nodes. Enemies will spawn on those nodes, and once you've killed an enemy, it will not respawn until you've rested an inn. So you can actually clear out a region of enemies and then kind of explore it and find where all the entry points for like dungeons and things are. And as long as you don't rest, the enemies are not coming back. But if you go and rest at an inn, all the enemies respawn, and you have to put up with them all over again. And they don't respawn in the same places, and they don't respawn with the same mix of enemies. Each region seems to have like an encounter table that it builds the fights off of. Connecting all of this are dungeons and explorable areas. So explorable areas are kind of like 3D isometric zones that you go into and you can explore, and there might be a little bit of story and 1 or 2 fights and some items to pick up, but the big ones are dungeons. Now, the wiki, and I have not tested this, so I don't know, the wiki indicates that dungeons are randomly generated from rooms. I can see that being the case, because I got through the very first dungeon, and when you go to that dungeon, you actually get to pick from 3 difficulties. And then you go in, and until you either reset the dungeon or kill the final boss, it will stay on whatever difficulty you've selected, and it seemed to have like randomly decided the layout and placement of enemies, rooms, and treasures. And the first boss fight was actually intense, which was cool. I actually went into that dungeon picking the second difficulty, so the difficulties were like normal, heroic, and legendary. And I picked heroic because when you beat the dungeon, you get a loot chest that you can open up and get randomized loot for. So there's kind of this roguelike dungeon crawler element to the dungeon systems where you can just grind the dungeons for a while on different difficulties to kind of gear your characters up, which was kind of nice. Also, there's some decent character customization. Every character has 2 talent trees that you can put points into and freely take points back out of to kind of customize them. So they all have one that fits their role, like Gully has a tank tree, Calibretto has a Healy tree, Garrison has a buffing tree and a bleed tree. Every one of them seems to have 2, and you kind of build out the characters the way you want. So if you want Gully to kind of tank and taunt, you can put points in the tank tree, but if you want her to do her damage, you put them in the other tree, that sort of thing. And because the points are easily removable, you get points at almost every level once you've unlocked it, and you can take them out and like just say, I don't want that ability active anymore, and you get the points back. You have a lot of flexibility in how you approach things, so that was really, really cool. Overall, Battlechasers Nightwar is a fantastic game, and I really wish more people played it. If you are interested in JRPGs at all, and you have any of the systems this thing is on, which again are Switch, Mac OS, Microsoft Windows, PS4, Xbox One, it's even on Linux, it's on Android, it's on iOS. If you have it on any of those systems, you should be playing this. It is $30 normally, on Steam at least, and I'm assuming that's going to be what it is on Switch and everything. Like I said, it's $10 on Android, so if you want it cheaper, get it on Android and play it there. But it is massively worth your time. I 100% suggest it. Go pick it up. I want to see more games, both from this developer and in this world. I would love to see more like Battlechasers stuff. Maybe a full-on action RPG where you control one character and run around through the world. That would be really, really cool. As always, thank you for watching. If you like what I'm doing, follow me on Twitter, Terminally Nerdy. Visit my website, terminallynerdy.com, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Well, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, as the Fierce Ferrets would say. Hey there, I just want to say thank you for watching this video, and a special thank you to all my patrons who are listed over there on the right hand of the screen. If you want to get your name in those credits, feel free to check it out at patreon.com/terminallynerdy. And hey, be kind to each other and stay nerdy. Thanks.